If you're still watching us, this is still basically speaking, and we are still your hosts.
Yeah.
I am Pragyan, and as always, I'm joined by Professor Devinder Thapa.
As usual.
As usual.
Namaste and hello.
So it's been a long time that we've recorded the episode, and we hope this is going to be our comeback episode. Although we think this is the season finale of this edition.
You can say that's because of a lot of teaching and writing, and then
a lot of traveling for you.
Traveling, and in Switzerland I wanted to do some Shahrukh Khan pose, but I couldn't do that.
Because you are always thinking about our podcast.
Basically speaking. So I hope in this finale of 2024, we will do some interesting discussion maybe today, right?
Yeah, the discussions that we've not done so far will be discussed today.
That we wanted to discuss always, but never did that.
Yeah, okay. So, as I think you've guessed, with the books in front of us, today's topic is philosophy, and I think it's good to start this topic because it's a topic that both of us are interested in.
Yeah.
He's more interested at the moment than me, but I have some questions, some maybe silly questions, and some everyday questions about philosophy and what is the relevance of philosophy in day-to-day life, and is it even needed in day-to-day life? So I think it'll be a good episode.
When you said asking silly question, that's where the philosophy started.
Okay.
Philosophy is always asking about silly questions. Look like silly.
Yeah.
But those are interesting if you go deeply, right? If I ask you, do you think this glass and water exist?
Mm-hmm.
So the philosophy starts from there.
Okay. Before you mentioned it, I was not thinking that now.
Oh, you started thinking like, maybe it's an illusion. You might be dreaming, they are just inside some simulation. Okay, those are the questions, but we are not going to confuse the audience. We will make you perplexed after the whole discussion, right?
Okay. So I think it's a good way to start from defining philosophy. So let's start from there. So what is philosophy?
Yeah, I think.
Is it like is it just asking silly questions?
So philosophy has a very different understanding. Okay. One is asking silly question. When we were in university, we used to say that if someone is
we are still in universities. As
a student.
Okay.
So we used to say, if someone is talking very wise thing, we used to say, I want to say in Hindi. क्या बोर कर रहा है philosophy मार रहा है. I mean, this philosophy is so boring stuff. He started doing these things. Or sometimes we think philosophy is when you are sitting in a bar, taking the glass of beer and wine and then talking some meaning of life, and after next day you don't know what you talk about. But we think philosophy in a very formal way. So Western perspective, if we can say that it started from Greek, right? So hopefully it started from Greek. Maybe it started from other parts, but it was historically, you can say that it started from Greek. And then in Greek, philosophy means, philo means love of, Sophia means wisdom, right? So it's a love of wisdom.
Okay.
But if you look from the Eastern perspective, it's more than that. We call it darshan, or the way of life.
Way of life.
And we say Tao is a way of life, how we live our life. So it's much more than just intellectual exercise. It was similar in Western part also. At the beginning, it was very much way of life. Right? If you read Socrates, right? His idea is not just about doing intellectual reasoning or logical reasoning and debates. It's more about the living that life as well. So that these are the different understanding of philosophy. You can say.
So what I understood from this discussion so far about what is philosophy is there's this aspect of thinking, and then there's this aspect of way of living, thinking and living.
Yeah, right.
So are these two basic things? So we are thinking about something, and what is what is the subject of our thinking?
So, thinking, very nice, right? I'll go a little bit. Thinking has a big, how it changed actually the whole Western philosophy. But before going to that, when we say philosophy, so one easy way is to actually look into three basic branches, let's say, not the elements.
Okay.
Three main branches are metaphysics, and then we have epistemology, and then we have axiology.
Okay, right? This is we're still staying in the Western philosophy.
No. This is for any philosophy.
In philosophy in general,
universal.
Okay.
Actually, if you see the philosopher, they will never say it's Eastern or Western because they think from very universal perspective. Right? For them, human is universal. And we have similar instincts, similar desires, and somehow I agree with that because philosophy goes a contextual. It's become very abstract and universal.
Yeah.
But still, we say that this is the Western way of thinking, this is the Eastern way of thinking, right? So, but metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology is a very much part of philosophy in general.
Okay.
Right? So now you might say, what is?
What is metaphysics? Is it related to physics or?
very, very interesting, actually. Metaphysics is a book written by Aristotle.
Okay.
Right? So it was written after physics.
Okay. And who wrote the physics?
So it's related to the physics.
Okay.
So physics is in Greek they call it physis, right? Physis, nature.
Okay.
And there's this metaphysics come after physics. So, but in normal, in universal term, metaphysics is something which is not directly observable, right? It's beyond the physics. Physics is you can observe, you can test, you can measure. Metaphysics, which is beyond that. So some question may be. So the metaphysics asks the question: is there anything real? Right? What is reality? So as I ask you the very first question, do you think this glass and water this exist? Is it real? Right?
Yeah, they appear real to me. Yeah, I can maybe.
So metaphysician will ask
it's real.
Metaphysician will ask the question: do you believe something is real because you can actually touch, sense, smell? Right? Is it because you can observe physically, or let's say, do you believe there are things which is non-material? Do you think they also exist? Are they real?
Is it by? So are we talking about like say concepts, emotions, feelings?
For example, right? So here we can. So when you go to the metaphysics, as I said, it goes very abstract. So it puts everything, emotions and soul and mind and spirit, everything as a non-material.
Okay.
Right? Some non-material thing. And all others material.
Which can be felt, which can be touched.
Exactly, all these material things. So,
okay.
And then the philosopher will ask, is it just material that exists? Or you think non-material things also exist?
Yeah.
Right? You see, now you started to think like, I mean, so philosopher will say, some will say, only non-material thing exist. You know, the soul and the consciousness and then the God, some religious people will say God. So that exists at the beginning and then that created all other material thing. That's one way of thinking, right?
Okay.
So we call it monism. Monism is, there was one thing and that created all other instances. You can say.
From the word mono, I think monism.
Mono is one, right?
One.
But then there are others who doesn't believe there is anything called non-material, right? They will say, oh, everything was material. Maybe you heard about Charvaka in Indian philosophy, right?
Yeah.
So he used to believe there is nothing called soul or the consciousness is all material thing.
Yeah.
So even the physicists, they don't believe in existence of consciousness or soul, right?
Yeah.
They will say, oh, there's particles, subparticles, and then when they come together from the molecules and out of that actually consciousness emerges, right? So this debate will never end. It's an ever-ending debate from the beginning. So the monist, you see, there are two forms of monist. One will say, only non-material things, and then it creates all the material thing. Other will say everything is material. So they are called the materialist.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And those who believe in non-material, they are known as spiritualist or idealist, because they think everything is idea. Idea means consciousness, right? And other is materialist thinking.
So are we also like in this within this topic of metaphysics? We're also thinking about. So again, back to thinking about. So metaphysics is maybe thinking about existence of something or absence of something.
Exactly.
Or
like so metaphysical question is what exists.
What exists? Okay.
What is something?
Yeah.
So it's all related to what.
Yeah, and the something can be material and non-material.
It can be material. It can be non-material, right? So then there are now, as I said, there are people who are idealist or spiritualist who think there's only non-material thing exists. And the others are materialist who think there are only material things that you can directly observe. Those things exist. Others are just, we don't know.
So to idealist, maybe this glass is a manifestation of some idea? Or
they will say because you can see, experience, you can touch. So you can see and then perceive and then it impress in your mind, right? So there's some idea, but there's some idea about the glass already.
Okay.
Because of those already ideas, we can understand these things, right? So it's not like glass is telling me I am a glass, because idealists will say, no, we already have our consciousness, soul has already idea of this glass and this table and books, right?
Okay.
So we just retrieve our, the understanding from the soul or from ideas out here, and then because we can just, and where does it come from? Because we see, sense, and then experience those things, right? That's how these ideas comes.
Okay. And what about the materialist? Or they would say there's nothing idea? Or
no, they will say because the ideas doesn't exist, consciousness doesn't exist, right?
Okay.
What we have is a material body, and then out of this body, this subconscious thing or the consciousness mind emerges out of this brain and nervous system and everything, right? So it's when we born, it's like blank slate. Although this is not metaphysical question, right? But it's epistemological. How do we understand? How do we know? But we should stay in metaphysics right now. So metaphysician, one is matter exists. One will say non-material thing exists, right? And there are other who think, we have heard these things, dualist. Dualist will say, no, there is a non-material thing and there is also material thing. But if we say material and non-material both exist, do you see any challenge out here? Because it's very nicely saying both things exist, but they're independent, dualists, right?
I don't think so. There's a challenge. I would agree that a lot of things, we have ideas of many things, we conceptualize a lot of things. A lot of things are in, like, say, our beliefs, our values. These are not like materials that can be touched or felt or seen. Right. These are just experiences. And then there are materials like book, glasses. So I see, But anyway, please enlighten us. What kind of challenges?
Again, as I said, philosophy, when I studied philosophy, because I thought there might be some root of knowledge, because I'm reading engineering and the MIS and then sociology, but I'm not able to understand still, the things are very different. Maybe I'll find some area that actually tells the root of the knowledge. Then I started reading philosophy, get into philosophy. But when I get into philosophy or trapped into this shit, then I realize philosophy doesn't provide you any answer.
Okay.
But it opens up more and more questions. Right? And that makes it beautiful as well, because then you start to look from different perspective. It is a metaphysics. And you have suddenly different perspective, whether it's a non-material thing exists or material thing exists. Or is it material and non-material? Sometimes we call it mind-body problem.
Okay.
Right? So the whole thing is there's a material thing and non-material thing. So the challenge with mind and body independent is someone asked the question to Descartes, because he is the one who actually There were many like this thinker, but he make it very popular. Right?
So he's a French philosopher,
French
René Descartes.
René Descartes, the dualistic thinking. So someone says, okay, if your non-material or your mind and body are separate, independent, how come you control your body with your mind? Right?
Yeah.
Because when I want to move my hand, I think I want to move my hand and I just move it. So how do you connect these two things?
Okay, yeah.
This is where Descartes actually he almost committed suicide. He couldn't fix this thing.
He couldn't think. He couldn't think.
There's a joke about Descartes. Have you heard this?
No.
He went to some beer bar, and then this waiter came and asked, would you like to have a beer, sir? And he said, I don't think so, and suddenly disappeared.
Yeah.
I just quit him.
Yeah.
So the dualistic idea is we have material as well as non-material things.
They
both exist together.
Yeah, both exist together, and they're interlinked with each other, right?
And they interact somehow, right? And then in the eastern part, we have more. They said, no, there is plural material and non-material, but they're plural, not just two. There are many other things, what do you call it? Water, fire, earth.
Elements.
Many elements, and then so they all actually come together and then make the reality.
Reality, okay.
So you see, there are three ways of looking into metaphysical reality. The monism, right? Monist way of looking, and the dualist way of looking, and the pluralist way of looking. So whole philosophy, Eastern or Western, is still fighting about this.
Yeah, these metaphysical questions.
Yeah, that is it's just if you look into the physics also, they will say, oh, we don't believe in soul. They don't do any test to measure the soul, right? Even though I heard soul actually weighed 21 gram or something. But then there are other mystic philosophers. They will say, no, science doesn't tell us all the realities, just tell us part of the reality. Right? So these fighting is still going on. This is metaphysical, right?
So after that metaphysics, you said other elements of philosophy?
So it's still not finished with the metaphysics. Now, metaphysics also asks the question, what was the first cause that created the whole universe? The first cause.
Big Bang kind of thing?
So the physicist will say Big Bang, right? Other will say God created these things, right? Hindu philosophy, the Eastern philosophy will say it was always there, it's eternal, right? Nobody has created or destroyed. It keep on actually this process of what do you call it? Creation, preservation, and destruction.
The circle of life, or like in more general, we'll say the chicken and egg problem.
This is very chicken and egg problem. Yeah, it sounds very silly question, but whole metaphysics is about which comes first, chicken or egg.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's another question that metaphysics asks.
Okay.
There's a cosmological question, right? Is there any first cause that created everything, or it just came out of nowhere, right? Then we have another question like, what is time?
What is time?
You see, now if I ask you what is time,
I know what is time, but I don't think I'll be able to explain what is time.
Exactly. You were saying the exact word of Saint Augustine. He said, so when someone asks me what is time, I think I know, but as soon as I start to explain, I don't know what to say. Because we don't know time, right? It's my time, your time, right? Bad time, good time, or time is just about the click of the clock. And even, you see, maybe say 12 here, somewhere it's not 12 o'clock, right? So then it seems like, what is time? Same with the space. The same question, if I ask you, what is space? You cannot define, right? You'll say, oh, space is, there's some space.
Yeah, there's space.
There's some space, two gentlemen are sitting out there.
We are in like a studio.
So the question comes, is space is vacuum? And then there's no, vacuum is not space. So these are metaphysical questions, right? Even if it's a private space, public space, right? Virtual space, office space. So what is space? Then question comes, other question is about identity. when you were born, you were not like this.
No.
Right?
I was very small.
So you see, your body started to it's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Changing, and then I read somewhere that our cells keep on changing every time. Right? The cells we have in our bodies every time is keep on changing. Right? So then the question comes: how do you know that you are you? That's the question of the identity. Right? So how do we define our identity?
Yeah.
Right? That's a metaphysical question.
But
because we are also a researcher, and maybe you have heard many times when you do research, ontology. Right? So ontology is also part of metaphysics. So onto means being, anything, being, right? Any entity is a being. And logy means study of those beings. So what is these things? What is human being? What are those things?
Yeah, also non-humans?
Non-human. What are ideas? And then a social structure, cultural structure. What are those things? Is it real? Is it socially constructed thing, or is it real out there, right? And what is the nature of those structures? How they are interrelated, right? So these are also question of the metaphysical questions. So when I as researcher or ICT4D, they said, we don't need this bullshit philosophy. Why should we talk about metaphysics and ontology? Now you can see that if you don't have this ontological view of the phenomena, then it's very difficult to understand what the heck I'm studying right now. What question should I ask, right? So you have to have this ontological view.
Yeah, okay. So ontology, so how would you, metaphysics was something that we discussed that metaphysics is the study of things that
cannot be directly observed or measured, right? And you cannot do analytics and all that. The only thing is through reason.
And then ontology is the study of beings.
Study of being, what exists, but it's a very much part of metaphysics.
Right? Okay.
So as I said, cosmology is a metaphysical part. Where does this universe come from? What was the first cause that created everything? Right? And then I said identity. We don't know. This is also metaphysical question. Time, space, and then free will. Do we have free will? Right? What do you think?
I think we have free will in many instances and not in other instances.
These are not easy questions, right? Someone will, because especially in Nepal, we believe that everything is determined. We say that
destiny.
Destiny is determined. Right? Whatever happening because it was written.
Would happen
in your kundali. I don't know what's the English name for kundali. What is this kundali? Birth chart.
Birth chart.
So everything is written. What's happening because it's written already there. You see, it's a very deterministic. But the challenge is, if you say that because it was already written and then you commit some crime, you cannot charge with the crime. You can say that because it was already written. I cannot do anything with this, right? So that's the challenge with deterministic thinking. But there are people who said we are all some kind of simulation inside the big computer created by some super mind, right? And then we don't have any free will. And the others, they will say there's nothing called this super intelligent thing. We are actually responsible for our action and everything. We have free will. Free will to do anything. That's why when you commit something, commit a crime, you should be charged for that. You are responsible for that, right? That's about the free will.
Like you mentioned that there are different ways to think about metaphysics. So are there also different ways of thinking about ontology?
Yes. So as I said, there's a dualist way of thinking about ontology and a realist way of thinking about ontology. So realist and dualist. These are two different things. A realist will say all these ideas, structure, social structure, cultural structures, they are real. Right? Even though we cannot think about that, we cannot perceive those things, but they are real. Right? That's the realist view of actually looking into the reality. And dualist is, they will say they will real, but this mind and matter are separate. Right? They are separate. There's another one who will say there is reality, it exists independent of our knowledge or perception, but they are not separate. That's called the non-duality. Advaita Vedanta. Okay, it's a fancy name, right? Advaita is non-duality.
Okay.
I mean, they are all one. They are all interconnected.
Okay.
Right? And that's a non-dualist view of thinking into the reality. A non-realist will say, no. There is nothing outside of our knowledge. Everything, all reality is based on our experience.
Okay.
The social structure is nothing, but it's how we actually create these norms and then, the whatever structures. But it's just in our head.
Okay.
It's nothing outside of us.
Okay.
So these are the two different way of looking into
Okay.
ontology, or you can say metaphysics.
Yeah.
Right? So this was a very brief about.
Yeah, we are just scratching the surface.
Yeah, just scratching the surface of the metaphysics.
Yeah, metaphysics. So, and then also metaphysics, ontology, and you also mentioned axiology as
yeah. So let's start with the metaphysics.
Yeah.
Let's say this is the first layer, right? When we born, and then our first question is, what is this? What is that? What is this Baba? What is this Mama? Right? You start with this. That's called the metaphysical curiosity, because you want to know what is something. Is it real? It is not real, right? And then later we learn that those things, something is real or not real, or they're independent of us or dependent of us, right? We create, or it's independent. So all this stuff, we start with the metaphysics.
Yeah.
The same with research, right? So we have to have this ontological view very clear at the beginning. Okay, there's technology, there's a social thing, and they're interrelated. So that's one view. Another is, when I say it's a dualistic view, I will say, sometimes we say, we just put the technology development will happen. That's a very, the dualistic view. You're not looking at they are actually influencing each other. What you're seeing is techno-deterministic. Yeah, you put the technology, something will happen.
Okay.
This is how it also influences the research.
Okay. So it's in a way it's kind of we are not aware of it. We're not reflective about it, but in a way it's kind of shaping the way we think things or assume things.
Right,
so that is the part where philosophy comes in. How do we take account of these thinking, these.
So you're telling, you're like philosopher. You're saying like my favorite philosopher, Heidegger.
Okay.
He will say, we all have this understanding from the beginning, right? The only thing is we don't reflect.
Yeah.
It's not explicit, right? That's why we take one step back and then think. And then theorize, and then create framework, model, and all that, right? But we already have those understanding. We all have this philosophical, ontological, the epistemology, axiological view. But it's not explicit. So when people say, I don't have any philosophy, I don't need because I'm a computer scientist. So I feel like, but you're a human being, right? So this was the first thing that we say, what is reality? The second things come when we say, what is that thing? And then I want to know about that thing. That's the epistemology.